I appreciate the honesty, Andrew. We also have Mr. Jayajit Bhattacharya with us on the panel. Mr. Bhattacharya, this obviously is not going as per plan. The G7 is a grouping of countries that have overlooked India, and according to Donald Trump, they have overlooked Russia. In fact, thrown Russia out in 2014 because they said the Russians illegally occupied Crimea. Donald Trump also wants China to be a part of it, but India's intentions when it comes to G7 are absolutely clear, that we want a new slate to begin with when it comes to our relationship with Canada, because when the two countries fight and spar, Mr. Bhattacharya, it's the diaspora and the business and the trade and the economies that suffer.
Yeah, interestingly, if you look at the relationship between India and Canada, even though geopolitically there has been a significant downturn in the relationships, in terms of trade, that has not happened. Trade has continued as business as usual, specifically if you look at the goods and merchandise trade. And the reason I'm calling out the goods and merchandise trade is because there is also the unseen trade, which is sale of education as a service, which is where Indian students go to Canada to study, and that's a massive economy, which obviously Canada seems to be losing out because of the geopolitical situation that they have created. Clearly, it will be unacceptable to any country, and India has made it very clear that terrorists of one country is impinging on the sovereignty and peace of another country. So Canadian terrorists interfering with Indian politics and Canadian diplomats interfering with the internal affairs of India is clearly unacceptable to India and to any other sovereign country in the world. And therefore, it has been amply demonstrated to the world as to what reaction India can take by reacting to and retaliating to the Pakistani-sponsored terrorism. Now, clearly, what is also happening is that the Western world seems to be equating terrorism on the non-Western world as not as terrorism, and it's only terrorism on the Western soils is counted as terrorism. Clearly, that doesn't work. That does not work anymore. And I think what India is trying to do is ensure that there is dialogue, there is understanding, something we have been doing for years, and it is being backed up by now strong action. We have shown the action against Pakistan, and now is the time for diplomacy. It has been a stated policy of India that this is not an era of war unless it is imposed on us. And we try to come out of war as soon as possible, which is what we did with Pakistan. In spite of degrading them completely from a military perspective, we stopped the war. Similarly, India is now at the G7 trying to ensure that its voice is heard, and clearly G7 also needs to expand. The population of India is 50% more than the combined population of G7. So the fact that G7 invited India and the Indian Prime Minister at the 11th hour itself is quite surprising. And I think that needs to be counted in when we are looking at the very complex relationship that has developed between specifically Canada and India, and on a larger plate between G7 and India, and also the breaking up of G7 into a G6+1, where US is about 70% more plus of the total GDP of the G7, but is going in a different direction. And the G6, which is rest of the countries minus US, seems to be pulling in a different direction. So it has become a very, very complex situation, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it in the next 6 to 7 months.
Right. My colleague Megha is also joining us back again. She's in Alberta, Calgary. She